punching shit, including you, and just it was.
Yeah, Mad Max was awesome, and I gotta say, it's probably the one movie that ruined movies for this entire year for me to a certain extent.
Right. I have talked to a lot of people about this movie since I've seen it. I don't like saying absolutes. I really don't, because I always feel like they can't possibly be true. This is the best action movie that's come out since at least 2000. This is the best action movie for the sake of action to come out in at least the past 15 years.
In my personal opinion, this is the best action movie since Terminator 2.
I could totally agree with that, but since I don't like absolutes, I'm not going to actually say it. I feel very confident saying best action movie in the past 15 years.
And what I mean by action movie is I mean like a conglomerate action movie, which means it has explosions, it has, fighting, it has like all these different types of action. Because, yeah, of course, martial arts movies, have a lot of stuff going on and stuff like that. But for the most part, it's a martial arts movie. Action movies are a little bit different because there's a little bit more variety in the action that's done. Which is not to say that martial arts movies don't have variety. It's just, martial arts movies are martial arts movies and are a little bit different than what you would consider an action movie.
Sure. This movie is so good. Okay, we're late to the party on reviewing this, mostly because we saw it multiple times in theaters. I have never seen a movie in theaters more than once.
That's insane, though.
I know, but usually I just don't like to pay the money. And when I was growing up, that wasn't really an option. Going to the movies happened maybe once a year, maybe twice a year, maybe. It was not a common occurrence for me.
Did you not have a dollar theater near you?
No.
Okay,
There's
yeah.
nothing
See,
like
when I was little, I had on Thursdays it was 50 cents. So yeah, I went to the movies a lot because it was cheap.
Right.
It was a cheap way for us to go out as a family and do something.
Right. But for me, that wasn't the case, and even in more recent years, when I'm the person paying my finances, usually I'll be like, I'll pay the money to see it in theaters, and then I'll wait for it to come out. Not Mad Max. I came out of this and I was like, let's do it again right now. Let's do it again tomorrow.
Yeah.
I had to see it again in theaters, and I kept telling, and there's two reasons. One, the experience in theaters was so amazing.
Yeah.
And two, I literally just wanted to give Mad Max my money.
Yeah.
I seriously was just like, how much can I pay you? And I'm usually not like that, because I'm really stingy. But I was seriously like, please, take my fucking money. Give me more.
Yeah. And I made it a rule for you that you had to watch all the Mad Max movies before you watch Fury Road, since it is essentially canon.
Well, I believe the Feral Child theory actually makes Fury Road a better movie. I truly do, and I have a lot of reasons for this. But yeah, I actually saw all the Mad Max movies twice. I have seen every single Mad Max movie twice.
Mm-hmm.
So, that's good.
Yeah, so I've seen every single Mad Max movie 3 times except for the third one.
Right.
Well, and the newest one, because I've only seen it twice.
And I'm honestly, even the third one, I feel like I'm a little bit more lenient on than most people are, because I like Thunderdome, I like the Neverland Beyond Thunderdome. Totally don't go together in the same movie. But I do like
so
both
better.
of them. Yes, but I do like them both. I just don't like them together.
Yeah.
But that is not Fury Road. Fury Road! Oh my god, you guys. So freaking good! And yes, the action was not like any other fucking action movie I've ever seen in my life. Yes. But then, this is one of those movies, kind of like The Babadook, where it's a horror movie, but if you take out the horror movie, it's built on such a good foundation, it could still be a great movie by itself. Mad Max is exactly the same way. If you take out the action elements, even though I get that a lot of things happen during the action elements, but if you took a lot of the same stuff and didn't have it during action scenes, yeah, I won't be as just like, "Urgh," but that would still be a grade A movie. That's still strong enough to stand on its own as a film.
It
But I
would
prefer it the way it's done. Yay.
It would essentially be The Road, which crazy theory that could work.
That they're in the same universe, but
That
on
they're in the
different
same
parts
universe
of the planet.
because Charlize Theron leaves in the winter, and then she just goes to the Mad Max world and loses her arm. No, but she got taken as a child. No, it totally doesn't work. I was just throwing two post-apocalyptic movies together. But it would probably feel more like The Road if it wasn't an action movie.
Right, totally. I think that's the kind of movie it would be. And that's still strong enough to stand up on its own merits in terms of story, tone, theme, message, characters, all that stuff was all very strong and well done. Just like all of them, everybody, but mostly I'm such a sucker. I love fantasy, usually more than sci-fi, for building a history, building a new culture, building new traditions that are so far removed from what we have day to day. And that shines in Mad Max. Just the history, the whole culture of the Citadel. It permeates through every bit of production design, every little bit of character development. It all shines really well and gives you a very full feeling of what the world is without, oh, well, let me do some exposition to explain to you that this is this and this is this, and let me tell you what this allegory is that you're seeing. No, none of that. It's just there, and it feels so just rich and disgusting. It's such a gross movie. I love it. The movie looks like it smells bad. It's awesome.
Yeah, so you have a background in production design, and I'm more on the director route. But this movie kind of combines those two worlds together in a way that it's a production design movie, but it's also a directing movie.
Right, and out of the Mad Max movies, all of which have very strong production design, and we're all ridiculously resourceful. Oh my god, some of the stories. But Mad Max, hands down, by a lot. I mean, just in general, Mad Max is the best movie in the franchise, no question. Just no question.
The first one?
No, Fury Road. The new one.
Yeah.
Fury Road is the best one in the series.
Yeah.
But the production design so much fucking further ahead than every other movie, and production design wise is my favorite post-apocalyptic world.
Oh yeah, it's absolutely realized, but in a way it's so grand but so minimal at the same time.
Well, because it's disgusting, and it's really poor in like kind of a really shitty circumstance. So even though it's developed and, like you said, it's like a really large scale, it doesn't feel over the top because it's so different, but it's not so much bigger, you know? It's not so much like more like Rococo or something weird like that, where it's like rich and lavish or something.
Right, and the plot of the water line being cut off to the people is very similar to the movie Chinatown, which another movie that did it recently was Rango.
Oh yeah.
So you have that plot line that is once again being continued, and this is the first time water has actually been been a commodity in the Mad Max world. Usually it's just gasoline, not gasoline. It's actually guzzling.
Well, it is gasoline. I think gasoline is just slang.
Right, but that's what they call it in the movie. It's not some weird pronunciation of it. No, everybody calls it gasoline.
The water thing was very interesting because on a surface level, he's depriving them of water. Okay, sure, whatever. And it's a control tactic. But really, if you pay attention, he's treating he's treating water as though it's bad for them. He says, don't be dependent on water. Don't let it control you. Bad shit's gonna happen if you really take in a lot of water. I kind of saw a parallel to that. This is a stretch, I understand, but I think that sort of allegory came from this idea that we have in America right now of weed. It's natural. It's from the earth. You don't need it to survive. But, you have government trying to say, no, it's bad for you, and if people had easy access to it, people would fucking run amok, and it would like it would just destroy our states. Even though it's just weed. I'm from Austin. It's not a big deal. I don't smoke it, but like it's not a big deal whatsoever.
I don't know. I mean, like water wars do exist.
No, totally.
Yeah,
like, I'm not saying it's it wouldn't have worked if it was real drugs.
Right.
No, if it was like he was holding out weed, that fucking wouldn't have worked.
But they have drugs in the movie.
They do, yeah, but they use them more as a tactic. The water thing fed more into Immortan Joe's character of blind worship. Everything he says goes. So these people don't even realize water, the main life source for every bit of life on Earth. Oh no, it's bad for you. This is the reason why I cut you off. Is not to control you in a way that you realize, but because it's bad for you. I'll give you a little bit, but don't have it all the time. It was a way to really implement his, not just like brute strength over them, but his sort of godlike status where everybody just, they don't like him, they don't fucking respect him, but they feel like he is all powerful and he has every control over their lives. The water was such a quick scene that really just struck home exactly how he's keeping this control over this whole population of people who are starving and thirsty and treated as literal cogs in a machine. You know, they're so fucking disrespected and downtrodden while he's, you know, sitting up in the tower with all of his goods. You know, he has greenery, he has vegetables, he has water, he has all the fucking water, he has, you know, he has the wives, he has nice things, while everybody else is fucking suffering because he enjoys the power trip of controlling him. You get all of that in like a minute-long scene where he pours water on them and then stops. That's how much you get out of this one little snippet. It was brilliant.
But the only nice thing he doesn't have is healthy children.
Well, he's trying to get. He has one.
Yes.
It's just he's dead now. His one healthy baby boy is dead.
Right. And was the big muscular guy with the thing on his mouth, he's probably the healthiest of, was he a child of Immortan? Because that was my assumption, right?
He was, yes.
Okay, so that was the healthiest.
The two characters in the movie who are kind of like, oh shoot, I can't think of them. I know them.
They all have crazy, awesome names, like you can look them up.
No, but the dudes from the third movie.
Oh, Master Blaster?
Master Blaster, yeah. He has two children who are kind of like Master and Blaster, but they're not. They're definitely not the same characters.
It's not.
But the Blaster kid that he had did have some health issues. I also think he's supposed to have mental issues. But even though he has like a lot of physical things, I think he probably has like some shit with his lungs, like asthma or something, or I don't know.
And the mental issues thing would be similar to Blaster.
Yeah. And then you had Master, who was, you know, this really tiny, sort of physically deformed guy who has like all these scars. He probably had heart problems or something.
Right. So, one forewarning that I'll give in this podcast is we may or may not spoil all of the Mad Max movies.
Oh,
so,
yeah.
You know, Mad Max is canon. Like, all the movies exist in the world. The timeline's a little wonky, and there are some theories about that. But, but it is a sequel. It is not a reboot. Which, like, thank fucking God.
Yeah.
I get that you gotta make reboots for, like, certain franchises.
But Mad Max is good, and it holds up. You don't need to make it again.
Hell, I mean, you could actually get out of Mad Max eventually and just do, like, Furiosa or, like, fucking one of the other wives.
No, I'm saying, like, the first one.
Right.
The very first Mad Max movie does not need to be remade.
But I'm saying, like, the world itself doesn't even need Mad Max anymore.
Right, but I like the idea that the world is different in every movie. I'm looking forward to, in the next movie, exploring a different world.
Yeah.
Even if it would be really awesome if it was, you know, Max and Furiosa off in a different world away from the Citadel, but that probably wouldn't happen.
Yeah,
but
and
that would be cool.
I don't think Furiosa is going to be in the next movie because I heard that there was some on set fighting with Charlize Theron and Tom Hardy.
Right. But back to the actual plot of the movie. Yeah, it's just, I got all of that out of that one little scene. And that's in every scene. Like, I'm just so blown away by how much we've really packed in there, especially considering the fact that the movie is about 80% action.
Mm-hmm.
But a lot is happening, and you learn a lot in those action scenes.
Right, and for a lot of people, that is, I mean, it's a very dense movie because you are getting story told through action. Mm-hmm. Normally, you get told story through exposition.
Exposition.
Yeah, this movie basically says, you know, all those fucking rules that they give you in film school, fuck them.
Well, this movie is the quintessential show, don't tell.
Exactly.
Show, like, you can show through action, and you can show through words, but you don't need to sit down and spell it out for the audience. You just don't. And there was the only exposition we have, period, is Furiosa's origin, which was how fucking short, you know.
Well, that, and we have a rather ambiguous flashback of Max's, which will feed into your theory. We'll talk more about it. It's so packed, and the action is absolutely gorgeous. But you're actually seeing a story told through the action. You know, one of the things that I really loved throughout the whole film was Furiosa's tear-filled eyes. She had absolute confidence, but her eyes were watered with pain.
If I can kind of fangirl for a second, I've had multiple people tell me, oh, you want to see Mad Max again? Do you think Tom Hardy's hot? And all the girls in my office are just like, oh, Tom Hardy's so hot. I'm like, Charlize Theron? Furiosa? Oh my god, she's so fucking beautiful in this movie. And not in a, you know, I don't like the Hollywood perfect Photoshop plastic look. I find it really unattractive, honestly. And she's so fucking gorgeous in this movie. She's so hot.
And she's very desexualized too. I mean, like, even her shirt doesn't accentuate anything about her form. It doesn't need to.
Part of why she's so hot, though. And I don't mean hot in, like, a sexual way, like, I want to fuck Charlize Theron. I just mean she has this presence that just, like, seems to pour out of, like, her whole being. She's very, not attractive in, like, you know, like I said, it's not attractive like I want to have sex with her, but it's attractive in a very intriguing way. You know, you just want to be around her all the time.
Right, and, you know, part of me is a little sad because I really would like to know more about the character. Like, I would like to see the character more. So hopefully the comics, you know, get into some more of her backstory, some more forward story, because she's probably not going to be...
Right, because after Mad Max, the thing I wanted to know the most about her actually wasn't even like, how did she meet the wives? I wanted to know what her journey was to get to be an Imperator, because in this universe, an Imperator is a military ranking.
Yeah.
So she has bought into the system a little bit, and you can tell that she believes in some of this fucking shit in their system by the fact that she still sports the war makeup. You know, she keeps like this grease and she reapplies it on her face. You know, she buys into some of the ideology of the Citadel, even though she's not from there.
Right, but and she never takes the belt off, which the belt is a Morton symbol, too.
Exactly, yeah. So she does have strong subconscious ties to the Citadel. So I want to know what her journey was from being abducted, brought to a strange place with her mother dying, to rising through the system and becoming an Imperator. Because she's defying the system, but she has bought into it to a certain extent. And I really want to know what she did and what happened to her to get her through this military, like, ranking. Because, you know, she probably had to start from the bottom and work her way up and get to the position of being... Because she's Immortan Joe's, you know, right-hand man who's not related to him. She's a person Immortan Joe empirically trusts until she betrays him. How does this get to happen? This is the shit I want to know. I want a whole movie of this.
Well, and I really like the fact that, like, early on in the film when she goes off course, one of the guys is like, "Hey, we're going off course," and then she's like, "Yeah, we're going off course," and then he's like, "Okay." You know, people just trust.
Exactly.
Yeah, people just trust her. It's not like, oh my gosh, you know, she's doing something. They trust her to make the right military decision. You know, when
for all of them.
Yeah.
Yeah, because the dude I think he brings it up 3 times. He's like, "We're going off course. Where are we going? What are we doing?" But he trusts her, and he passes the order down the line, and everybody trusts him. You know, so it all sort of comes together. And the only time that the War Boys ever leave her side is when it gets to the point where Morton Joe is coming up, and they're like, "Wait, shit, she probably did something wrong." But they trust her so implicitly until then. So I just want to know all about like how the fuck that got to happen. Because she has so much power.
Yeah.
In the Citadel, among the War Boys. And I want to know how that came to be, because she's fascinating and awesome. Love her. And of course, you know, one of the more obvious, what happened to her arm? I don't know that I need to know what happened, but if that was incorporated in her backstory at some point, that would also be cool. But I'm more interested to know, like, her life story than what happened to her arm or how she met the wives. So.
Right, so, it's really interesting how the movie starts out, because, you know, you have Tom Hardy as Max Rockatansky, and he's out, and he's looking, and then there's the narration.
And here's the thing, before I heard anything about the feral child, and before kind of the rest of the movie kicked in to sort of ruin this idea for me with all of his flashbacks, I thought there was some really brilliant design work in this opening scene that I think just in the end didn't really come into fruition, because he's talking about his past and all the horrible shit he's done and how he's failed people, as this 2-headed lizard is crawling in the foreground, and then he stomps on it and eats it. And I thought the 2-headed lizard was sort of a physical manifestation of, not like in like a reincarnation way, but in a production design sense of his wife and son that were killed in the first movie. So I was sitting there thinking, you know, like the 2-headed, like the 2 members of his family. And I thought, wow, this is such a brilliant callback to the first movie. You know, it's so subtle, but he ends up being the reason they die. And they show that by, like, he's fucking eating it, you know. And then with the flashbacks that clearly show that he has a different story that he's talking about, at least. Or that he's a different person altogether. I was just kind of like, I don't... And especially because he's really only haunted by one ghost. Like, you see many faces, but really it's the one kid. The one little girl, his daughter, that you see more than anyone else.
Which he had a son in the movie, so it's a little confusing.
Right. None of the flashbacks match up to the first movie, which doesn't make sense. He had a wife and an infant son, whereas in this movie they clearly state in his flashbacks that he had a daughter who is older, like maybe 9 or 10, and she was hit by a truck, not by a motorcycle. You see that very clearly too. You see all these faces of all these different people from none of the original movies.
Yeah, you see like this
like you see
Aborigine.
Like
yeah, you see this Aborigine guy, and like none of these characters were in the other Mad Max movies. So I'm like trying to figure out like, are they gonna go to it when they come out with Mad Max: The Wasteland, which apparently is the name of the sequel?
Next one, yeah. And there's also the fact that there were a few other things. One, George Miller himself said he doesn't really get the timeline. He's just kind of gone with it and he doesn't really care that much about accuracy. But if you look at the tattoo on Mad Max's back, when they put like all of his information, they say that he's about 30 years old. Like they say it in a number of days because they don't measure it by years anymore. It's a certain number of days. But
and what do they put at the bottom of the tattoo?
What?
Road Warrior.
Oh, right. But exactly, Road Warrior, where the feral child is from. But they say he's about 30 years old, which doesn't fit to come after the Beyond Thunderdome movie. Like, he just wouldn't be that young. He wouldn't be that young after that much more devastation happening to the world. It doesn't fit that timeline. There's also the fact that the head of... I always call him Jane, like, from Firefly, because he has sort of the similar hat, but the helicopter flying dude who becomes the feral...
I want to say his name is Gus, but I could be wrong.
Yeah, I'm not sure. You're looking it up now while I'm talking. Cool. The helicopter flying dude from Road Warrior becomes the leader of the tribe of the feral child. Feral child says in his narration, which The Road Warrior and Fury Road are the only two movies where Mad Max is doing narration. But it's not Mad Max, because in The Road Warrior, it's the feral child. So, you have the fact that there's the narration. You have the fact that he has the skull of the feral child's tribe leader in his car, and then on top of his car. And this skull is shown, like, very specifically a few times. It gets run over by another truck, you know. But it's attached to his freaking car. And, you know, of course he has, like, the little music box, which is probably the most obvious hint.
Which doesn't play Happy Birthday this time, because Happy Birthday, fuck the copyright of Happy Birthday. That's retarded.
Especially since Happy Birthday is a ripped off melody from another much older
Good
song.
Morning to You.
Exactly.
Exact same fucking... I fucking hate the...
It's a copywritten ripoff. Like, what the hell? But there's also that. There's... The real reason why this came into being a theory, though, is because, you know, Mad Max is nameless for a majority of the movie. When he's asked his name, he's just kind of like, I don't know. You don't need it. And then when he says it, he feels kind of like a little uncomfortable when he says it, like it's not quite right. Which is kind of interesting. And there's also the fact that he pretty much just speaks in grunts and kind of like Feral Child did. It also kind of works when you're talking about the discrepancies between the flashback and the discrepancy between the casting, because obviously it's not going to be Mel Gibson again. So it just fits so nicely, and it fixes a lot of the problems that would arise with Mad Max movie, because I actually enjoyed it the second time after sort of thinking more about this feral child theory, that it just really made it more enjoyable, because you can be like, well, the flashbacks don't match because it's a different person. You know, it's just carrying the mantle of Mad Max, kind of like, I don't know, most superhero storylines do. You know, you can say, well, but Peter Parker is Spider-Man. Well, Miles Morales is also Spider-Man.
Right.
It just sort of, it fits very nicely. I like it.
Yeah, no, it's a good theory, and one of the things that I think really...
I also like it because I loved the feral child in Road Warriors when I saw it, way before I even saw Fury Road. I just fucking loved Feral Child. It's so interesting that this whole movie is about him learning how to stop being this fucking lone wolf and stop, you know, just relying on himself, and to learn how to cooperate and work as a team and to trust people. This is totally not the same scenario, and I get that, but being a filmmaker in college where, you know, you have to do team projects and people fucking flake out all the time, I've had a lot of problems trying to collaborate with people, because I don't really want to give people work when I don't trust that they can do it. It's something that throughout the course of college I've been working really hard to learn how to delegate and to work with people, because I can collaborate on ideas. That's fine, I understand how to do that, but when it comes to, I'm going to trust you to get this work done and to do it this way, and I'm going to go and do this stuff, and we'll get together and put it together. I totally am not capable of that. I'm sorry. Fuck, I can't do it. So, in the story, I kind of relate a lot to Mad Max. Of course, he's out for himself, the whole world's after him, but then he learns how to really come to an understanding and to work in part of a team, in part of a cooperation. Not to be like, oh, well, I'm going to blindly agree with you no matter what, but how, you know, he can bring his own stuff and everybody else does, because I think the team dynamic throughout the movie, not just for Mad Max, but, I mean, that is Mad Max's story arc in the movie, because he doesn't have a lot to do with a lot of the other story points, but that's his personal arc, as he learns how to extend and work together with a whole other team that already kind of is working together, and they may argue over different things, and they may have different ideas and different skill sets between each character, and each person has a different moral code of what they're willing to do and what they're not willing to do, and what they can bring to the table, and what's just not an option for them. And they all figure out how to work together as a team for a common good. And Max is learning where he fits in. I love that. I love seeing a dude do that. I'm not gonna lie, that's cool. But also, that's a moral you can really apply in a lot of different ways to a lot of different people. I thought that was really cool to see. You know, in an action movie of all things, too. You know what I mean? Like, he's not just, oh, I'm gonna go in there and do shit myself. Because he can't.
Right, and this movie does a really interesting job at really punishing the main character for being a lone wolf. Like, so many movies glamorize the lone wolf. Like, hey, you gotta look out for yourself, and, you know, the character that, you know, thinks for themselves and all that stuff, they're the badass, they save the day, all this shit. This movie says, no, if you're going to be the lone wolf, if you're going to think about yourself and only yourself, guess what's going to happen to you? You're going to get strapped to the front of a fucking car with a fucking, with a garden rake shoved on your fucking face, and you're going to be going 80 miles per hour on the fucking desert.
That's the other interesting thing.
Mad Max literally became a hood ornament.
Well, it's super interesting that, you know, he is this supposedly macho character who, throughout the movie, yeah, he's in a lot of action and he's capable, but he's never just, like, badass and awesome. He's almost always vulnerable or in sheer just, like, shit my pants panic. You know, he's on top of the car, and this is, like, the prominent photo of him with, like, his chest out and his arms back and, like, this mortified look on his face, and he's all chained up. He's a bullseye. He's a literal target, and that happens repeatedly throughout the movie, where, like, when he's hanging out of the truck. He's just a big target. He's extremely physically vulnerable. That was awesome to see out of a main action star, because I'm more of the, I'd rather have scrappy underdog as my hero instead of, like, the Avengers, where you really don't believe anything bad's gonna happen to them, so there's no tension.
Yeah, and he's essentially Buster Keaton in the post-apocalyptic world. You have like all this shit going around him, and then he's like hanging off to this thing, and like all these death-defying stunts and stuff. This is so much a Buster Keaton movie.
I'm sorry, that is so fucking brilliant. I'm pissed at you that I didn't think of that. Oh shit, it really is. Oh my god, this is the Blacksmith, the post-apocalyptic movie. Jesus. Oh my god, that's so funny.
Or the General.
Or the General.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm sorry that shit, you hit the nail on the head, man.
Also, there's a lot of homage to silent film in this film, because this movie decides, hey, do you like exposition? No, you probably fucking hate exposition. You want more action in action movies. So here, we're going to give you a movie that only breaks for like a second or two, and then we get back to it.
Well, the other thing is that they are the dream dialogue team, because in writing, whether you're writing a script or you're writing a story where it's like narration and whatever, or like description, you need to make every single word count. And if any word doesn't count, it needs to, like, if it's not important, it needs to be cut. The dialogue is so fucking trim. But that means anytime anybody opens their mouth, you really have to pay attention. Even when people are talking over each other or other shit is happening, you need to know what they're saying, or else you're gonna, well, you don't need to. But if you are paying attention, you're gonna get so much more of a fulfilling experience out of it, because you'll really get all the layers.
Right. One of the things that I really like about this movie is that this movie was actually written, but not written. The storyboards were made first, and then the script was made after the storyboards, which I'm not trying to give a plug to myself, but that's actually how I tell my stories. Like, I'll make a storyboard first, or I'll have a storyboard in mind, and then I'll do a script. But, like, everything is about the visuals, and then, you know, I add the dialogue later.
Right.
You know, like,
Sure,
I'm essentially thinking of the action versus the dialogue, which so many film students nowadays, they're so wrapped up with dialogue, and it makes sense. I mean, what's the most interesting thing about the Avengers? Oh, the quippy dialogue that they have to each other. You know, that's it. The action, you know, like, the writers don't even have a comprehension of what the action's actually going to be. So, like, it's separated from the script, and that happens so much with movies. But this movie decides, hey, you know who's the real storyteller? the storyboarders. So we're going to put them front and center, which is one of the big problems that Charlize Theron had with the script of the movie, because it was being written as the film was going. So she was having an issue with that. But, you know, fuck it. It looks amazing. Yeah, it works. Also, on top of that, this movie has amazing editing. If this movie doesn't get nominated for its fucking editing, Hollywood is fucking stupid.
Well, we've already established that Oscars don't give a shit about shit. They really don't.
I seriously think this movie is a huge contender for the Oscars.
I hope so. That would be phenomenal. But honestly, I don't see it happening because the Oscars will pick two fucking movies.
It did really well at Cannes. It was #2 movie in Cannes.
Cannes is more respectable than Oscars, though. I'm sorry, but it's true. The Oscars don't watch half the movies that they talk about.
I think Mad Max is going to be the one movie that they might make an exception to.
That would be awesome. But
best score, best editing, best
definitely
sound.
Best fucking score, oh my god!
I can't stop listening to it. It's great fucking workout music. It's great driving music.
I just love the fact that, like, not all of it, I realized that when I watched it a second time, but so much of the movie is... I realized this when I watched the movie again, because not all of the music is like this, but so much of the music is actually diegetic, happening in real life in the story. They literally just have a fucking war rig with drummers and a blind guitarist with a flamethrower strapped to the side, and the guitar actually works in real life. The flamethrower works, the guitar works. It's fucking awesome, and it gets you freaking pumped, man!
Have you heard that they're having like a Mad Max concert with that fucking guitar? Oh my god! Like I've heard. I don't know, but like that shit sounds absolutely fucking amazing.
Oh my god, best rave ever.
All I gotta say is, okay, so this movie didn't do super well.
Oh yeah, because it was sandwiched in between The Avengers and Pitch Perfect 2.
Okay, we're getting sidetracked. Let's get back to the narrative of the film. We'll talk about this stuff later.
Right. Yeah, you were talking about it needs to be... Unfortunately, I don't think that there even is a thing for practical effects. I mean, no, there is, because Interstellar won last year for practical effects. So, yeah, the practical effects of Mad Max need to fucking win something. Just, oh my god, you literally had stunt women in fire, taking, like, photographs in the middle of a fire during stunts. That's fucking amazing.
Costume design?
Costume design?
No,
costume design,
Costume design always goes to fucking period pieces. Like, rarely does it ever go to a movie that actually, like, does something original. It's like, oh, look at how they captured the Victorian era, or look at how they captured early 20th century America. Right. Yeah, I mean, that's fucking Oscars.
The problem is that the Oscars have the most simplistic strategy. They pick two main movies that they like. The one they like the most, they give all the important awards like acting, directing, script, and then the other movie that they really like, but don't like quite as much, they give all of the technical awards to, and then they'll give out a couple here and there if they don't really just perfectly fit. But there's always just two fucking movies that they just want to give, and they don't want to share with anybody else. And so I think that hurts any prospect Mad Max is going to have, especially people who don't want to see an action movie, which the Oscars don't fucking see a lot of movies. They don't. And they'll admit it. They'll be like, no, I don't fucking watch movies. I don't watch a lot of the movies that are up for nominations.
Right.
You know, so.
Like, they're a bunch of old fogies, and they prefer movies catered to an older audience, which is kind of funny because the director, George Miller, is like 70 years old.
Yeah, is he like 70 or 79?
Oh, he's old.
Yeah.
And
he's still reinventing action movies.
Yeah.
Still.
I swear, this movie literally feels like an old person, like, coming in, like, all these directors are, like, fucking up, putting too much fucking CGI and all this stuff in the movies, and then he just, like, walks in the door, and he's just like, hey, what the fuck are you doing here? Okay, dude, stop. This is how it's done.
I just picture him, like, strolling in, kind of like Clint Eastwood, and being like, you whippersnappers, let me show you how it's done. Mad Max Fury Road. rest of the directors are in the room just going like, ah, shit, man.
Yeah. One thing, even though this movie didn't do incredibly well, like it didn't do as good as it didn't do as well as Pitch Perfect,
which had no competition for its genre at the
right?
time.
And then it got sandwiched after Jurassic World. Like Jurassic World shortly came out afterwards, which so like this movie and Jurassic World did incredibly well, and we liked it, and you can listen to that podcast as well. And yeah, that's a really good movie. But like at the same time, like Mad Max just feels like a movie that we haven't seen before.
Yeah.
Like there's something about it that feels original, even though it's the fourth installment of a series. Like it feels original.
Well, part of it is we've never had an action movie with that much action in it, that quickly paced, with that much other elements really so thoroughly intertwined with it in like a really non-descriptive way, with that sheer amount of practical effects in that sort of camera style. We've never seen a movie that just came together that fucking well.
Yeah, and plus the editing in the movie is, dot 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 dot. Like it's faster than we see editing, but it's so smooth. Like,
yeah, it's
like,
so fucking smooth.
They had to have insane stabilizers.
They must have had like a crazy amount of cameras too.
Right. And that's another thing. Like if you're a young filmmaker, possibly invest in a second camera. Mm-hmm. Because you can save yourself a lot of time and effort redoing the scene if you just have two cameras. Right. But sorry, I'm getting into young filmmaker, but like this movie motivates me. Like I feel like I have to talk about like the art of making film with this film because there's so much passion in it.
Yeah, and all of it just bleeds through.
Yeah. Like
you just feel all of it. There's just so much. And here's the thing, this movie isn't even that much like, oh my god, it's fun, awesome action. It doesn't even feel like fun and awesome. It really doesn't. Like, it feels like The Dark Knight was gritty and violent, but it wasn't like awesome action. Like awesome fun times. But it was really impactful. And I feel like that's a lot of what Mad Max is too, where it doesn't really feel like anybody's having a good time, but it's so just like, boom, punch right into your solar plexus, Bruce Lee style, in terms of impact and emotion, and just like fucking gripping the seats of the movie theater, like the little armrest, just like gripping it till your knuckles turn white, just blah. Yeah, it feels like it. I know
everything has weight to it. Everything has purpose. Like, you don't have scenes where characters fucking stop and start talking about, like, well, why should we do this? And, blah, blah, blah.
No, there's a ton of that. But it's just not like, let's stop and talk about it.
Exactly. Because
you have to think about these things. I love this because it works in an existential, or not, maybe existential is probably not the right word, but there's a little bit of a philosophy here of that. You can sit down and sort of think to yourself, morally, what do you find acceptable? And morally, what do you think is true? And how do you really see the world? You can sit there and you can sort of ponder it and meditate on it. But really, what it comes down to is when you're in the thick of life, when you're going through actions, when you have to make split-second decisions and you find out really what do you believe and who are you as a person. That read in the storytelling of the movie, because nobody has time to like sit around and philosophize except for one very brief scene in the desert. Everybody has to say, in Flash, this is what I'm willing to do. This is what I'm not willing to do. This is how I feel. This is what the world is like to me right now. This is how I identify. And it just comes in rapid fire. You don't need to take a whole section of time to sit down and elaborate it to everybody. But you make that decision to think that way and to be that way every single moment of your life as it goes. You make a decision to commit actions and to say words that really say who you are and what do you think. And that happened so thoroughly in this movie with Furiosa and the Wives. That's all of what the movie fucking is. No. But a lot of the action scenes did have a lot of scenes with Furiosa and the Wives and the many mothers who were just saying, you know, practicing their morality, practicing what they really feel to be true.
Right, and yeah, they wanted to be free, and they were trying to find the green place,
right?
Which, as we find out later, spoiler alert, doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah, it's a wasteland now. It kind of looks like the world in the road, except for without some of the more modern things like shopping carts and shit. Kind of looked like that.
And one of the most beautiful shots in the entire movie is when Furiosa finds out.
Oh my god, the scene when she's in the desert. Oh.
And they take out most of the audio with her scream.
There though, it's kind of muted, but you hear it.
Yeah.
But it doesn't have to be like in your ears, just like You still feel a lot of that weight, but to me, it's not the only scene in terms of beauty that surpasses the shot of her on her knees in the desert. Is actually the shot that follows it with the sun, you know, right, like she's facing the sun and she's in the foreground and the sun is just sort of like pounding on her, and you feel the whole weight of like, this is all there fucking is. This is all of it.
Right.
There's nothing else. There's no hope, there's no redemption, there's no salvation. It really visually gives you the feeling of hopelessness and despair that she's feeling in terms of just sheer overwhelming grand scale of it.
Yeah, she feels the weight of a big sister. You know, because she has led, you know, in lack of better terms, sisters. The wives were not.
They weren't sisters with each other.
Yeah, they weren't sisters, but like there was a sisterhood between the women, and she is the big sister. She has to look out for all of them, even though they are capable. And they have their own spiel, and we actually got into this with another podcast that we did. But their relationship forms a bond. She's the strongest of them, but they're all capable.
Right, exactly. Every member decides for themselves what they're willing to contribute, because there are members of the wives who will not commit violence, and there's a lot of condemning violence in the movie. There is. It's an action movie, sure, but there's a lot of verbal condemning of violence, because a lot of the wives, not all of them, but a lot of the wives are not willing to commit violence. They fight against unnecessary violence when they find Nux. They say no unnecessary violence, not gonna fucking happen. Splendor, who was one of my favorite wives out of all of them, she has the pure. Splendid? Okay. She is a pure epitome of peaceful protest, where she uses her body to protest against Immortan Joe, sort of almost utilizing his objectification of her for her own power, but without committing violence towards anybody. And then when she died, oh my god, that was so fucking sad. I was really, really upset.
But it's interesting because, like, the way that she's shot is objectifying, but not in the way that you would normally think that it would be objectifying. The way they shoot her at the beginning is it focuses on her belly.
Right, exactly. Yeah, it's all about the baby.
It's all about the baby, because everybody in the story is objects. So it's not just the women's it's not just the
right,
the women trying to break free.
Every character except Furiosa and Immortan Joe are treated like objects. Mad Max is treated like a fucking blood bag. That's literally what they call him. They call him by his object. You see War Boys as cogs in a machine. Literally, to open the gates and close the gates, they have to be physical cogs. And
right, and they're given these lies about Valhalla and all that stuff. So
religious brainwashing.
Yeah,
that's
exactly.
what it is. Yeah, and the use of narcotics from. They're not narcotics, but they get people high with the spray paint.
Chrome.
So the chrome, yeah, so fucking good. So literally everybody except Furiosa and Immortan Joe are objects in the movie, except for they're all fighting to not be objects, and it fits into pretty much any social structure you can think of, even first class or third class or first world or third world, where we all fit in this structural hierarchy. It exists. There is a fucking chain of command, and to a certain extent, everybody has to be an object to a certain degree in their lives. And this movie is very specifically about trying to break from that. No, you're a person. You are not a label. You are not a thing.
Right.
And that is very obviously it's very clear when they say we are not objects. But
I do think that's really important because we do live in a day and age that we try to put ourselves in boxes.
Yeah.
You know, and I do like the idea of like moving past that because our ancestors tried to move past that, but yet we are so focused on moving into boxes to label ourselves as, you know, a certain type of people or, you know, another type of people. And we really should work together, which is what this movie
is all about. Yeah. And I especially love the fact that every wife has a very distinct personality.
Mm-hmm.
They all have different traits, different beliefs, they have different levels of intelligence, which is it's interesting. I'm not saying any one of them is particularly stupid or anything, although they're more just deprived than anything else.
And because the movie is limited in dialogue, I can see some people saying, oh, well, they're not given enough agency. Well, they're given plenty of agency. It's just not through dialogue.
Every single one of them has free will by the time we meet them.
Exactly.
Every single one of them makes their own choices. Every single one of them helps the cause in their own way.
Yeah, I mean, two people try to go back to a Morton.
Mm-hmm. One chick goes back to Morton.
One chick goes back to a Morton.
Or tries to.
Splendid. They took
her body. That's different. That was an accident. She didn't try to go back.
Oh yeah, because she fell off and they were like,
they took her body.
Okay, sorry, I forgot that for a second, but back on it.
Right.
Yeah.
Every single character is a person. Everyone is fleshed out and has like their own different qualities to make them a different person. And nobody in this fucking movie is a stereotype, which is fucking mind-blowing when I think about it for a second. Not even like the smaller side characters, none of the many mothers, none of the wives, not Furiosa, not Mad Max, maybe like, I wouldn't say Morton Joe, but maybe some of the allies who come in to help him, although really, I don't think so.
He is kind of like a fat cat. So
yeah, he is kind of a fat cat, but, kind of, sure.
Yeah, I mean, like that...
But he does enough shit himself, which says a lot, actually, that he's willing to put his own feeble, failing, unhealthy body on the line.
Yeah, and that part was really interesting because, like, we're not given a clear reason why his body is that way. I'm guessing it's just based on the nuclear waste that has caused you know, people to be born deformed and...
Because everybody was really sickly in the movie. All the war boys they're all terminal. That's what makes them war boys. Every single person wearing white paint is gonna die. They're all dying. The people
and
had
he gives those people
illness.
a purpose by, you know, creating this...
Valhalla, yeah. All the people in the town are skinny, undernourished, they're missing body parts, they have physical deformities, his sons do. Really, the only people who are fat in the movie, except for maybe Morton Joe a little bit, are the milk mothers.
No, you forget that one character that was driving the car, he had the little nose piece, and he was, like, ridiculously fat, and he was, like, putting his...
No, but he had issues with his feet. He had elephantitis in his feet.
Okay.
He wasn't fat. He had physical deformity as well. Which is one thing to say, yeah, all the wives are ridiculously hot, yes, but the interesting thing is that everybody is about as skinny as they are. It wouldn't make sense for them to be curvy or have full bodies. It just doesn't make sense in that world. It's one of the only times I'll actually give them a pass for using, like, the sort of model body type.
Yeah.
And some of them, like, Lenny Kravitz's daughter, she had, like, a different body type, which is pretty interesting. But everything fits together very well.
Yeah, it's a very well constructed movie. The production design is gorgeous.
And insane.
Yeah. Well, and, like, resourceful as hell, too. Like, this movie went over budget, but when you actually look at the budget and what they used for, this movie is insanely resourceful.
Yeah. I'm sorry, but how many fucking movies go over budget? It's not even that big a deal. I'm
right,
sorry.
but like one of the things I also like about this movie that I don't know if we've gone really in depth with this is just the use of practical effects. Like
everything in it was fucking practical.
Well, I mean, this movie.
I think there were CGI enhancements.
There were CGI enhancements, like when the people are like flying up into the dust clouds, and there was some of that stuff going.
Oh my god, that shit! The fucking sandstorm was so freakishly beautiful. Oh my god.
Yeah.
Even the second time I saw it, I was still just in awe of that shot. Oh my god.
Yeah.
Like, I can't even believe that it's CGI, because usually I feel sort of a little bit of distance from a CGI shot, because I read it as fake. I do. It's just a subconscious thing in my mind that I'm like, well, that's fake.
Yeah, but if you go online and check out the behind the scenes, you're like, wait, there were actually people like going on the pole things.
Yeah.
This movie is insane. Like it literally is like a cross between like if you like Cirque du Soleil, it's got the Cirque du Soleil with the little pole stuff.
Right.
It also is like a monster truck race. And then you got a little bit of, like street brawling and stuff like that. So, like, it's all this stuff combined. Like, fuck the Fast and the Furious, Fury Road, man.
Yeah. One thing I will say, in terms of the theme, it's all about breaking free from objectification. I'm just gonna go out on a limb and say this because I'm the female on the show. Yes, they choose to highlight sexual objectification as their main sort of catalyst in this. But don't be blinded by that. The movie is about freeing yourself from social restraints, from this shit it's pushed on you that you don't have to accept. It's all about being objectified in various different ways, not just as a sex object. So please don't get sort of like, oh, well, they're talking about sexual liberation. They are. But think about it a little bit more. The movie really made me think a lot about the ways that society has shaped me into what I'm supposed to be. And that's what society does. That's kind of what it's there for. I get that. But it's all about breaking away from that objectification. So even if you are not somebody who is sexually objectified, or if you are, maybe this could be an interesting movie to make you sort of look at other aspects of your life that are boxing you in like that.
Right, and I think it's really interesting because this movie has been heralded as a feminist movie, which I personally agree with because it is about breaking the societal barriers that bring people down, but in an equal way. One of the things that I don't like about modern day feminist viewpoints is the fact that they seem so boxed in with women's issues. And this movie puts the women's issues on the forefront, and yes, they did hire the writer from the vagina monologues.
They did, but they did not hire her for her like to inject feminism in the script. She had a history of working in Africa with women who were sexually abused and raped and who were in sex slavery, I believe. She used her experience working with those women to bring out the backstory and the characters of the wives and of Furiosa. That's what she's there for. That's why she was brought on to consult, which I think is a good thing. But yeah, the movie is very equal. It does happen to be an action movie, but I don't agree with this notion that it's, well, of course it's somewhat romanticizing action and violence, but it tries to work, it talks about other avenues as well. It focuses on women's issues. It focuses on action and violence. But there's a lot of other things there. It talks about other options. It tries to discuss, well, why don't we do this? Why isn't this working for us now? How are people being objectified in all these different ways? What is broken in the system? And what you were saying about feminism that I personally don't like about feminism is so many faces of feminism want to say, their way is the right way. There is a best way to be a feminist. And it's just like, when we live in a society where everybody can say, well, this is what feminism means to me.
Well, I think one of the big issues of feminism now is that feminism is really going through an identity crisis right now because a lot of stuff that they were fighting for
It always has. I'm sorry, but really, the identity crisis has been going on as long as feminism has been a term.
Well, yeah, I mean, you got feminism, you got black womanism, you have different forms of feminism, you have, the more equal side, you have the more, let's turn the patriarchy into a matriarchy, like, all this stuff, like, still qualifies as feminism, I guess, but, if you want to look at the dictionary term.
Well, here's the thing with the dictionary term. I'm sorry, so many people say, I've heard time and time again, different people, men and women, say, well, do you believe in equal rights for men and women? Well, then you are a feminist. I call bullshit because, yes, the goal of feminism is equal rights and treatment, social treatment, for men, women, and non-binary people. But that is not all that it entails. Feminism subscribes to specific methods and different avenues of coming around to that goal, and the different factions of feminism all believe different things, which is totally fine, and there's nothing wrong with being in one faction or another, but it's not just simply, well, as long as you believe, then you are a feminist. No. It means that you subscribe to a certain understanding of what that would mean and how you should get there.
Right, and in a modern society, there are three types of people. There are the people that are warriors, or you bear children, and then there are the bottom feeders. And the bottom feeders are the people that he gives the water to and stuff. Like, they aren't even a part of, like, the society, really. They're just
they're just
there.
Kind of the leftovers.
Right. So, it's interesting because Furiosa is on the warrior side. She's the one woman that either broke free from that, because there is signs that she might have been a wife at one point.
See, that goes into the comics. There was nothing about that in the movie. I'm sorry, but I even looked for that the second time I saw it.
Okay, so I guess
nothing to suggest that in the movie.
So I read the comic recently, so that sorry.
Well, what you're saying about the bottom feeders is interesting, because I think that is another thing that the movie is trying to address besides female issues, is social class issues, especially when we're right at the time when Bernie Sanders is really trying to fight for the below the poverty line people, which is the majority of America. We're really in this situation where we're trying to deal with not only homelessness, but people working so fucking much and being broke, not having money, not having food, needing government aid, all these different things.
Right, and to clarify, when we talk about that, we're talking about people living paycheck to paycheck, which is the majority of America. So, the argument that, that isn't most of America, I guarantee most of the people listening to this belong in that category. There are some people that, are a little bit more...
there is still a middle class.
Yeah.
There is. It's just the middle class is not the majority.
The middle class feels more like an upper class now.
Right.
Like, if you were actually going to put the numbers out there, like, if you're going to compare the super rich to the super poor, the middle class are, living in suburbs and all that kind of stuff like that.
Right. But definitely, if you're just talking about pure numbers, the middle class is not the majority.
No, they
aren't.
It
should be the majority.
They're isolated
as opposed
neighborhoods.
To the lower class and people living in poverty, people living, below the poverty line. I have never, ever not lived below the poverty line, and I bet most people in America are like that too. I'm not trying to say, like, oh, poor me, but I'm just trying to say, the poverty line fucking sucks, and there are too many people trapped underneath it, and what happens at the end of the movie isn't the liberation of the wives. It's not. The very end of the movie is the liberation of the lower class from the higher class, which is an entirely different way of breaking away from objectification, breaking away from social norms, breaking out of this hierarchy that's just fucking suffocating everybody except for the one dude who's on the top who benefits from it.
And don't you think that in our society today, for a lot of people, there are two choices for poor people to do. Either marry a rich man or join the army.
Well, you would think that one. You would.
I
Your
would.
personal experience.
Well, yeah. But I mean, like, that is a way from people with extreme poverty, that is a way for them to climb up the ranks and sort of... It's a quick way to get out of the ranks. Either you're pretty, you get chosen, and you go off with a rich husband. That still exists.
Right.
I'm not saying that that's right. I'm not saying anything. That still exists. But there's also another option, which is if you're living in extreme poverty, you can join the military and hopefully live.
Right.
You know.
Well,
so
the interesting thing about our society is we have like this really weird double standard where so many fucking people are struggling paycheck to paycheck or just plain not making it. They have two options. They can either work well over 40 hours a week. They can hold down a job, two jobs, multiple jobs to support themselves, support their family, all that stuff. They can either do that, or when that is just not enough, as so frequently it's just not enough, you need help from the government. You need tax breaks, you need the food tickets, what do you call those? What do you call the food tickets?
Food stamps?
Food stamps. You need food stamps, you need welfare. But there is this stigma in America where, oh, well, if you take from the government, then you're taking from the government. You're taking from resources. You're just lazy and no good. You're not willing to go out and get a job. You're taking advantage. When, yes, of course, there are certain people who take advantage. Of fucking course. But so many people fucking need that, and there's such a stigma attached to asking for help from the thing that's supposed to help you.
Yeah, and
I feel like that came through a lot in the movie, especially when it came to that water scene.
And one of the things that I hear from a lot of people is, why can't you just enjoy a movie as a movie? And if you believe that, this podcast is not for you. Like, it's not. And I'm not trying to be rude or anything like that, but, like, movies are more than that. If you can read a book and get more out of it than just, Harry Potter fought Voldemort, or, Bilbo escaped from a dragon.
Right.
Like, if you can get more out of those stories than just those things, then there's something else going on. And, like, I see so often, and it frustrates me so much, that people view film as somewhat a lesser art.
Even though it encompasses every art, almost.
It does.
Yeah, I'm not gonna go as far as you as just, tell anybody that they're not welcome, because I don't believe that. But I agree with you. Not every film attempts to say anything more than what they're trying to say. Not every film is more than a cash grab or more than just, I have this cool idea, I'm just gonna put it out there. But there's nothing wrong with taking things out of movies. And even if it's something that nobody really intended to be taken out of the movie, there's nothing wrong with coming away with something else.
Right, and just to clarify, I wasn't saying that, like,
I
people
know.
weren't welcome. What I was trying to say was that our views on things are so opposite that, like, you would have to you have to listen to us from a different point of view.
There definitely needs to be more of a social acceptance towards talking to people who don't share your ideas, talking to people who have different viewpoints than yours, because that's how you learn. Doesn't need to change your mind every time, but you have to be accepting of the fact that not everybody is going to agree with you about everything. You have to just accept that because it's a truth. But also, when you only talk to people who agree with you about everything, and I'm not even talking about, like, internet echo chambers. I'm just saying, like, I'm saying, like, there is a social thing of don't bring up politics, don't bring up religion, don't bring up things that are going to be divisive. You should learn what other people think and other people feel, so
you shouldn't be passive.
There needs
there's
to
so
be
many
more
people
discussion.
in this. Yeah, there's so many people in this world today, especially young people. my generation is part to blame. I'm only a little bit older than you, but there's so many people that just go, oh, I don't watch the news. I don't pay attention to, politics. Why should I be involved? There's nothing I can do. Well, if you believe that, then it will be true. But for the people that don't, I want them to be in control. I don't want the people that are just like, oh, well, nothing's going to happen. Well, guess what? I don't want you in fucking power. I don't want you doing anything. Be a bottom feeder. Because if you're going to have that mentality, you deserve it.
Right, I agree with you because you worded it maybe a little bit more extremely than I would, but I agree. I get really frustrated when people my age, because I've been an activist since I was a kid. I know that sounds weird, but I really have. I've been very involved in politics and what's going on in the world, and I always at least try to do things about things. I'm a human being and I have a place in society. I'm very low on the ladder, and what I do doesn't have a lot of effect. But I can try. I can try. I can work. I can at least, push my beliefs and my work out there. And try to make things a little bit better if I have a problem. But mostly it's just, how do you not pay attention to the world around you because it all impacts you? You should at least be kind of aware. But I get really frustrated when, nobody my age... I went to my freshman year of college, my very first semester, I took a class where me and one other person had voted in a class of, 22 people. So there were 20 people who didn't vote. And they all said they don't pay attention to politics, they don't know what's going on, so they don't want to vote. Or they're just like, well, everybody sucks, so fuck the system. And it's
guess what?
No.
If you think that's fine. That's fine.
Fuck the system. Really, if you think fuck the system, do something to fuck up the system. Even that's cool. Really.
Well, it depends on what that is, but yeah.
Well, right, don't blow up buildings, but, and by that I was thinking of, V for Vendetta, where, they blow up the parliament. That's what came to my mind. But, yeah, even if that's what you believe, there's something to be said there, but there needs to be more of an acceptance of discussion. Just because people disagree does not mean anything bad. It really doesn't. It's not bad to disagree about things. It isn't. There's nothing wrong with that.
But, I'm sure everybody here has had something that they said on Facebook that has gotten somebody to dislike them,
Right.
Granted, sometimes your Candy Crush invites might infect somebody's Facebook feed, and they're just like, this person, really likes Candy Crush so much, fuck them, unfriended. But, also you'll have political ideas that people will just be like, oh, well,
but it's not even political. It's ideological, it's social, it's religious, it's everything.
And there have been issues that I've struggled with that I have addressed to people, and people just want to shut it off. People don't want to have a conversation about things. If it's something controversial, if it's something, people just want to be in their little box and be safe in their box. Here's the thing. Entertainment is not a box. You might watch entertainment and understand it in a very simple thing, and that's fine. You can enjoy something as mere entertainment, but please, for the love of God, don't say that, viewing something and trying to get something out of that is pointless.
Well, I also think that fiction, period, media and fiction is a fantastic platform to talk about very difficult ideas, because it kind of distances you enough away from things that you might have a hard time talking with, or you might not really feel comfortable talking with other people. You can go and explore these different ideas and things that you want to know more about in a comfortable setting that is fiction and media. You shouldn't just automatically be turned off because something is mentioned or something is depicted. Maybe dig in a little bit deeper. Why is it making you upset? Should it actually be making you upset? What do you think about this, and what do you believe about it?
Yeah, fictional role models do exist, and I think they are important. Mm-hmm. I know some people are like, oh, well, no, you have to have, real... No, because, here's the thing.
You should have both, I personally think.
You should have both. But, there is a power to fiction that a lot of people don't give credit for. Mm-hmm. And I think that Mad Max is a great example of that. I think that it illustrates things. Granted, it is the extreme of everything.
I agree. And it fits very much with what so many societies all over the world are like in modern day. you want to pay, like, if you pay attention to it, and if you sort of take different things to be similar to things in your own life as you see them, it can really help you sort of explore what's going on in your life in a way that you might not have really thought about, very consciously.
Right. I mean, I hear all the time, like, people watch a movie, and there are the passive people where they're like, oh, all of a sudden I watched this movie and it changed my life. It got me to, think in ways. One movie, I don't really like this movie, but one movie that did that was Crash. It got people talking about, like, the racial disparities, and, like, I mean, quite frankly, I think Do the Right Thing is a much better movie when it comes to addressing those issues. Fine. Crash did it for them. That's great. That's great. That is a positive thing that came from that movie. And I think that this movie addresses some of the issues that women have in our society, where, like, they can only be, like, one of two things. Or they'll be viewed as one or two things. They'll either be viewed as, like, somebody who's trying to go against the system, or somebody who's totally for the system.
Right.
There really isn't an in-between. Like, and I think this movie addresses these extremes where, like, you're either, everything for, or you're everything against. A 1 or a 0.
Right. And the problem is that nothing is in binary extremes. Nothing in the world. We do not live in a world of either or. We live in a world that's everything, when it comes to identity, gender, social issues, ideology, religion, any subject you want to talk about, any sort of structuring, it's all on a spectrum. You can be anywhere in the middle. And of course there are the extremes, and people want to say, well, there's this at this end and this at this end, and so let's identify it from there because that's the most easy to pick out. But everything's on some sort of spectrum, and there's a whole range of all different sorts of things in the middle.
Right, and I actually think Immortan Joe, given somewhat of the rather cartoonish nature of his appearance and everything like that, I think he is a lot more complicated than most villains that we get in movies today. He isn't the mustache twirling person. He deeply cares about a lot of people that fight for him and such like that.
Right, he does give a shit about the war boys. He does give a shit about his wives. He objectifies them and he mistreats them, but he does give a shit. And in the end, his goal of let's breed a healthy human race is not an inherently evil idea. Let's have healthy people.
I'm sorry, I've been playing Fallout Shelter recently, and that's kind of like the plot of the game.
Right, but it's just like, throughout all of human history, people have been trying to, breed healthier, happier people. Throughout all of human fucking history, throughout all of animals mating and evolving ever, it's always been with the goal of something better, and healthier, and more able. And that's his end goal. Now, of course, he's fucking evil and sadistic in the way that he tries to go about it, but it's understandable.
That's one of the things
That's
I
not
like.
to say that really Immortan Joe is a sympathetic character. I wouldn't really go that far. But
I would say that there are sympathetic intentions.
You do kind of get this feeling of, I hate to put it this way, but I kind of don't really know how else to put it. Ugly guys want love too. I hate to say that, but really, there is a thing where it's like, there's a very out there, loud thing of women need to be, and I agree with this sentiment, I do. Women need to be judged beyond physical looks, and they need to be judged, like, they don't need to be judged on, well, do you look exactly right? Do you fit this norm of beauty? No, just fuck the norm of beauty. But it goes the same for men, too.
Well,
and Immortan Joe is kind of a thing of that, because he can't fucking get a woman on his own. He can't. Now, that doesn't excuse any of his action, period. It doesn't. No.
But, it doesn't.
But, like, in his own, fucking little bubble where he has all the power and he can get everything he wants, of course he's going to use his power to get what he wants.
That's one of the things I like about, this villain is, to me, the concept of a villain that's just like, ooh, I'm evil, that doesn't really exist. people that do really bad things, they have passion and they think they're right.
Or
and
at
you
least...
get a very small type of people that are separated from emotion, but they aren't really the people with power.
Right, exactly. At the very least, a villain thinks that what they're doing is right for them.
Exactly.
Even if it's only them alone.
Which is... No, I think Morton Joe did actually think what he was doing was better for society.
In general. No, I'm saying in general as a thing in real life of people who we might consider evil or harmful or whatever. At the very least, they believe that what they're doing is right for them.
Yeah. He looked at me. He looked at me. Yeah.
God, poor Nux and Barry and Larry. I was so sad about Barry and Larry.
It was kind of funny because Barry and Larry kind of looked like he had removed his balls and put them on his neck. I'm just saying.
No, it's true. It was kind of like grotesque looking. I was like, ew.
Yeah. Yeah, and I like the fact that this movie decided to be gross in some points, just like. Ugh.
It should be. Human beings are gross. Nature is gross. Animals are gross.
Yeah.
We're gross. There's nothing wrong with being gross. I mean, there are social problems with it, and yeah, it's better to not be gross. But to a certain extent, we're just fucking gross. Whatever.
All right, final thoughts.
Oh my god! I want to bite my fucking hand off. That's literally the first thing I said after the movie was over. The first time I saw it, I was like, I am just so adrenaline. I'm gonna bite my own hand off. No reason for that. That just flew out of my mouth. I don't know why. I'm just gonna do it.
And then, for me, when I came out of the movie, it was like, oh my god, I need an action figure. I need something. I need something. And then I go online, and then it's like, nothing.
Where's
nothing
all the shit,
Max.
Yeah, we're having a
no pop vinyls. No fucking toys.
It's the Planet of the Apes reboot all over again. It's like, dude.
These are fucking successful movies, and you don't... Well, Planet of the Apes at least had action figures. This movie has jack shit.
Yeah.
What the fuck?
You're wearing... We both have this t-shirt, but you're wearing your, Furiosa the Riveter shirt.
Yeah, and I love this shirt.
Me too.
And it's on...
I've worn mine so many times.
If you do want to see some Mad Max merch, they're t-shirts and...
Oh, they're having a
posters.
blood drive right now, and you can get a t-shirt for $11 saying you donated blood, but it's a picture of Mad Max as a little chibi as a blood bag. It's cute.
Yeah, I am totally going to donate my blood with that shirt on, and I'm gonna get a picture taken with me wearing that shirt and donating blood.
I'll probably be with you. Yeah, this movie, great fucking action movie. Great characters, but there is so much to it. Yeah,
you might watch this movie thinking it's very surface, but this movie is not surface.
That's why it works, though. If you only look at it from a surface perspective, it totally works.
Yeah, you can still enjoy the movie. You can just be like, oh wow, explosions.
But if you look deeper, you will find so much there.
Yeah. Man, I absolutely love this movie. I'm buying it the first day it comes out on Blu-ray. Yeah, and I'm actually really excited about the video game. I don't know.
I want to play the video game too. I am not a gamer, but I want to play that fucking video game. It's gonna be so cool.
That is gonna be the reason why I'm buying a PS4.
I'm gonna be so excited when that game comes out.
And what's cool about the game is it incorporates all the worlds of Mad Max. So you have Gastown, you have you have the
Gastown, Bartertown, Citadel, the Thunderdome, the Beyond Thunderdome, Neverland, and then you probably have sort of a just freshly post-apocalyptic world from the first couple Mad Max movies.
Possibly.
Maybe not. Possibly.
I'll be really interested in what they do with it. There have been some really good video game movies based off of video games. One that I really liked was a game called The Warriors, and it's based off the 1970s Warriors movie, and yeah, it's awesome. So let us know what you think. If
Yes,
you
please.
if you like this movie, if you hated this movie, let us know and contact us. Contact us either in the comments section on our YouTube page. Either email us at allwalksoffilm@gmail.com.
Or just send us a little inbox on YouTube. That's cool. Or you can even contact us through the Twitter or Facebook.
Yeah,
We're all
you
on
can
those
you can
sites.
look at All Walks of Film on Facebook.
Yeah.
So and
And
you can
you still have the picture of Furiosa up on there too, right?
yeah, I still have the picture of Furiosa at this point.
Yeah, at this point when this broadcast is going up.
Right, and then you can contact me at Twitter at Ren Mulligan. So yeah, thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.